Thursday, July 3rd, here on the Just Baseball Show. That's Arm Layton, and I am Peter Apple. And today, we're going to evaluate contenders in the American League that are 3 games out of a wild card spot or better. And we're going to start getting the brain going when it comes to the trade deadline. We're going to be evaluating some of the weaknesses of these teams and spots that they will hammer come deadline season. And it's all brought to you by the sportsbook born in Vegas. Remember, folks, download BetMGM, whether that be on iOS or Android, and use promo code JUSTBASEBALL. Why? First bet offer up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first wager loses. But remember, gambling problem? Call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older. Terms and conditions apply. So in this episode, Aram, we're going to review some contenders' weaknesses. You're also going to do a prospect report for the American League so fans of these teams can identify some of the prospects that might be on the move in order to address these weaknesses. And I didn't tell you this pre-recording. I also have a last word. It's like another
Oh,
fun
let's go.
hypothetical that I can't wait to run through you with. Is there anything off the top of your head that you want to get started with before we start to evaluate these contenders?
No, I think the only thing is just seeing the news like an hour ago of Spencer Schwellenbach hitting the IL with an elbow fracture for the Braves. Like that
Yeesh.
absolutely sucks. Because he's one, just so much fun to watch pitch and so talented, but two, that just feels like the final nail in the coffin for the Braves. So we're talking about teams that are going to be adding and stuff like that. And I know we're on the AL today, but like we're going to be in the National League tomorrow, and we're not talking about the Braves as a contender. And unfortunately, I think just with that might be enough for them to go full seller mode. I think maybe moving forward here, but really sucks, and hopefully Schwalbenbach gets back healthy sooner rather than later.
That does suck. And I didn't see that report because I thought I was teeing you up to say the Miami Marlins have won 8 in a row. I thought that's what you're
No,
going to run in
I
with. And
literally
you're
just
like,
saw that as we were starting up, and I was like, no. So no, yeah, but the Marlins have won 8 in a row. That has been fun to watch. I think they have a chance to tie their franchise record. If they can, Edward Cabrera. We're going to talk about some teams that may need some pitching. Edward Cabrera, unless the Marlins just decide to win like 20 in a row, and then maybe
who
they're
knows?
contenders. But it's been really cool to see him throw, and I think he could end up becoming one of the more intriguing arms on the market.
How about Otto Lopez being a
Baller,
missile?
baller.
Augustine Ramirez. I mean, this team is playing really, really good baseball. And speaking about the Braves, unfortunately, right with that 8th win in a row, of course, that was on Tuesday. So we're recording before their game today, catapulted them above the Braves in the National League East
What do you think
standings.
the MGM odds would have been that for on July 2nd, Marlins ahead of the Braves in the standings?
Well, what I do know is because I freaking bet on it was the Braves to win the National League East. And they had one of the highest win totals in Major League Baseball. I think the second highest going into the season, with the Marlins having the fourth lowest win total of any team. So on BetMGM, those odds would have been super juicy. And I wish I bet them instead of the Braves to win the division. Thank you for bringing it up again.
I mean, you would have had to actually be a wizard to get that, but it just shows you again why we play the games. You never know what the heck is going to happen. I don't know how long the Marlins are going to ride this thing out, but it's been really fun to watch, and we'll see. I know Jack's getting a lot more entertaining games to call now too, which has been fun to see with them just on this hot stretch. I texted Griff. I said, "You think you'll be healthy by the World Series? Like, you think you'll be ready to go by game one?" He's like, "Yeah, I'll pull a McNeil in the fall league and get ready to go for the World Series." But no, it's funny. I think it's just exciting for Marlins fans, and especially in a week where we had a Marlins yeah, director of pitching on the show, and then we had the director of amateur scouting on the call up. So it's been very fish themed lately.
And Jack is enjoying it. I mean,
Yes.
right after that game ended on Tuesday, he texted in our Discord and he just said, "It's all about the fish, baby. Go fish." And
Yeah.
people were commenting back, "Fish fam," and all that stuff. I mean, it's exciting times, especially for a team without many expectations. Winning a lot in a row is great. Winning solves everything. But to see
Just being watchable in the
the
young
young
pieces.
pieces on
Yeah.
the Marlins really start to show out, like the win streak is great, but to see that, it's got to just feel good in Miami.
No doubt about it. No doubt.
All right, should we talk about some American League contenders? And just another reminder, we will do the National League contenders tomorrow. But in this episode, identifying weaknesses that fans should be aware of come deadline season. And remember, it's a good idea to join the best baseball group chat in the world. We're talking about the Discord. You can find that link in the episode description. $5 a week, $10 a month. Very affordable options, again, to join the best baseball group chat in the world. Aram, Jack, and I, and the whole staff over here at Just Baseball. And if you are listening on audio, best way to support without spending a dime, rate, review, 5 stars, whether it be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts. And if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the like, subscribe button, as well as comment. Did we miss any weaknesses? You let us know. You're giggling already. What's up?
I wanted to shout somebody out. I saw a YouTube comment the other day, and it was somebody saying, "Best way to support the show: liking, subscribing, commenting." And that was his comment. I'm like, "You're the best
Perfect.
for that. Like,
Perfect.
that's awesome. Yeah, yeah. Like, push that algo. Thank you." And then the other thing is, this episode I know is going to get the mock trades channel in the Discord
Oh, yeah.
popping.
Yes.
Popping. So we're not going to do that yet in terms of like the trades that we're going to propose and like players that we're going to target. We're going to save that for when the deadline gets a little bit closer. You and I talked about that before we hit record, but you guys can already start conceptualizing based on the strengths, weaknesses, farm system strength as well. Who I think, and I might be wrong, we always get surprised at who ends up getting traded. But generally, I feel like I got a pretty good feel for what prospects won't get moved and which ones will, for who maybe each team could potentially target.
So how do you want to work through this? Because we're going to go team by team. Do you want to do a prospects report for each team after we go over their weaknesses, or do you want to save all of the prospects at the end once we go over the big
I
league
think
squads?
I think each team after we go through their weaknesses and just kind of say here's the state of the farm
I
and
love that.
so then at that point you can figure out, hey, how much can they really push forward to go make an impact on this roster.
And I know it feels like we're stalling, but one more quick thing. I just want to throw you under the bus really quick. I sent Aram all the teams that I think could be realistic contenders for this exercise. And there's two teams that didn't make it that I wanted to put in. The Royals at 40 and 46.
That's ass.
The Twins at 40 and 45.
Ass.
Arb said they could only be within 3 games of the wild card. So Royals and
I'll
Twins
wear
fans,
that one happily.
I was going to include you. I still think the Twins are going to what's my current thought of the Twins? I think the Twins are going to be fun. Please don't
Oh,
trade Buxton.
yay.
Yeah,
Buxton's going to get traded.
I know.
I hope,
Yankees?
actually.
No, he's going somewhere where they actually need him. All right, let's go over some of these contenders right now. We're going to start with the American League leader, the Detroit Tigers. So I identified 4 different needs for them. And I think the most pressing need for the Tigers at the deadline is shortstop. Trey Sweeney has a 68 WRC plus. You talked about him at the very beginning of the season as potentially an area of concern. And we both didn't expect that maybe Baez could plug that role, right? There was a reason they were going with Trey Sweeney because Javier Baez was unplayable. He's been pretty good, but I don't truly still know if you want him as your shortstop because we are holding the Tigers to another level. We want to go win a World Series,
Yeah.
right? So the expectation should be we want to build the best squad possible, and I don't think they're fielding their best squad with either Baez or Trey Sweeney at shortstop.
I really like what Baez is doing for them. I think he's clearly gotten himself right to the point where he can be a good utility piece or a guy that you move around between the outfield and shortstop. And maybe they want to roll him out there and give him the reins and see what happens. But I would want a better insurance policy at the very least, or a guy that could like split time with him a little bit, if you're going to do it that way. So I agree. I think you got to try to find a shortstop there, but it doesn't even have to be a huge impact shortstop.
No.
I was thinking of like we were talking about who would trade for IKF. That could be actually a fit because then IKF, if Baez continues to ball and you actually decide, hey, love him at short. I know we said we weren't going to give specific options, but this is one where it's such a unique situation. Like I think a guy that can play all over but also play shortstop fits the mold. So I would say infielder who's capable of playing short. But Baez is playing shortstop every day, and if the rest of your lineup is mashing and Baez is playing fine defense at short and doing what he's doing offensively, maybe they're okay with it. I agree with you that I think it's a spot that they should or could upgrade. But I'd argue what you had next is probably even more pressing.
Interesting. So starting pitching. So right now they have Tarek Skubal, who is as good as anybody on the planet. They have Jack Flaherty, who has not had a good year in his first year in Detroit, rocking a 4.80 ERA
Back in Detroit.
back in Detroit. And Casey Mize, who has been good, right? And Reese Olson is going to come back this week off the IL, so that helps, right? But Dietrich Enns is right now their five starter. With Jackson Jobe going down, Sawyer Gibson Long just hit the IL. They have a couple other arms on the IL. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think starting pitching should be an upgrade here. They have a current playoff rotation, but to kind of get them through, it would be nice to add a fifth. And, we'll see what Reese Olson looks like when he's coming back from injury. Casey Mize is solid, but I wouldn't call him like an elite number two. I think he's a very good number three. And Jack Flaherty just hasn't looked good. And then Scooble's just unbelievable. But there are question marks in this rotation. So there's a part of me that still thinks shortstop is a big need for this team just because the bullpen is so good. But we'll talk about that in a second. But I see what you mean, though. Starting pitching is something that they should be targeting.
I just want someone that I can trust in game 2 or 3. Like even if
Yeah.
you want to go Mize game 2, fine, but then I need a strong game 3 option. And maybe Flaherty when he's really on is that, but I think just having another arm that you could trust would not hurt. But also just getting through the rest of the regular season and being able to maintain pace at the top of the American League. You want to have another starting pitcher that you can trust. We'll see how Reese Olson comes back, as you mentioned. If he comes back and looks like the fully healthy Reese Olson that we've seen be a really solid arm that looks like he could be mid rotation, then sure they could be in a little bit more comfortable of a situation there. But I do think starting pitching could be another spot where they could use an upgrade. And we're going to talk about the farm system. They could go get maybe the top available arm, whoever that may be, on the market if they wanted to.
There's a couple others that aren't as pressing, but I think they're worth noting. The Tigers rank 30th in stolen bases.
That's kind of crazy.
They ranked 26th last year, so I'm almost thinking to myself, is it an organizational thing like
Yeah.
Hinch? I don't remember the Astros in their heyday being, demons on the base paths either. So maybe that's more organizational. But then you look at their lineup and who's really the speedster? Like Zach McKinstry, Glaber Torres? Are those their best? Parker Meadows?
Yeah, I would say Parker Meadows.
Yeah, like these guys, they have some speed, but they're not stealing bases. And I feel like a team like the Tigers, who again is hunting for a World Series championship, it's hard to be dead last in something. And if you're dead last in stolen bases, again, it doesn't have to be anyone huge. Just getting some sort of speedster, maybe could play the outfield a little bit, maybe some sort of a utility role, even though I know Baez is kind of playing that. But I would just love to see this team get an influx of speed.
I agree. Well, and that also makes me think about center field in general. I know Parker Meadows was great last year. I know he's been hurt and it's a very small sample this year, but you don't want to do nothing and then say, oh, well, Meadows will get going. And then the trade deadline passes, Meadows doesn't get going. And now you're in a spot where either you got to move Javi back to center field and then Trey Sweeney at short, or I don't even know what you would do. Is center field an area where you're thinking maybe they could upgrade as well? Like, how much are you buying the Parker Meadows performance from last year? It was 82 games. It was good, but it's 22 games of bad now off of injury this year. The underlying wasn't great last year. Do they look at a center fielder potentially too?
Um, I think if you're going to go get a center fielder, it's probably going to be a pretty good player. And for me, I am just adding the best player available at either position. And then let's say Meadows does start to struggle a little bit. I mean, you can create a platoon with Javi Baez and Parker Meadows and at least get him against righties. And he still is a good defender, at least. So you're not really sacrificing that. But I agree, he has not gotten off to a good start. But I feel like he has proven enough to have a little bit more leeway here. I'm not saying that, oh, yeah, this is the building block for the future and you can't touch him. No. But I think judging him off 22 games off an injury isn't exactly fair. But to your point, it's something to watch,
Yeah.
right? And that's kind of what this episode is about. that is an area of the Tigers that if he is still performing at this level by the deadline, then we might have a different discussion. But if I'm the Tigers, I'm basically looking for a speedster. And if you play short, great. And if you play center field, great.
Yeah.
Just being able to plug that with another guy with some speed, I would say.
I agree. I just that would add a nice layer to what they have going on there. But they do have a little bit of flexibility to your point where it doesn't have to be all in on just center field because Javi could then pop back out to
Yeah.
center. The fact that he's actually been this versatile player now for them is has been amazing. It's not just the fact that he's been productive; he's actually like helping them be flexible and potentially cast a wider net on the trade market.
Absolutely. And then the last one, just back end bullpen help. Right, they rank 14th in ERA, but I think the bullpen skill level is better than ranking 14th in ERA, but could always just use another arm.
Yeah,
Just kind of one of those things where it's like you
everyone
can
always
never
can
have
use
too
one.
much bullpen. And, they have a good bullpen, but it could be a little bit better by adding just some depth.
No doubt. No doubt. I agree with that. And then just the farm system. I mean, I think it's as strong as just about any in terms of the top end talent. You know how I feel about Kevin McGonigal, and that was a guy that was a top five prospect for us in our last update. Now I think he's pretty much consensus top five. He's untouchable. And I wouldn't rule out, and I've been talking about this, like I it sounds crazy, but Kevin McGonigal could just hit so well that they throw him into the fold at the big league level. It wouldn't shock me. It would not shock. I would say it's more likely for sure that Kevin McGonigal plays his way into a big league opportunity this year than he gets traded.
Yeah.
That's no doubt. Max Clark, you're not trading that guy, especially because he's playing so well. But it's it's funny that like you could have a prospect trade that's an optics nightmare, but he's such a lightning rod for them. And I think he would sell so many jerseys. He's so important beyond the fact that he's actually a good player as well that I don't see him as really tradable as well. You have Bryce Rayner, who just dislocated his shoulder and is out for season, but I still think is a guy that they could potentially be willing. They maybe didn't want to, but now that the timeline's even further pushed off, it might be a 2028 ETA. You could potentially move him as a top 50 prospect in the game.
But
Josue
he
Briseño.
would net the Tigers a big piece.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
yes, he is hurt right now, and yes, the ETA is far away. But for a seller to then buy him,
Oh,
you'd
you
have to
don't
give up
care
a
that he's
pretty
not playing
penny.
for the whole year.
No.
It's fine. He'll be back healthy next year, no problem. And I think that's a guy that I think unlikely it would take a really, really special player. But I think you could do that if you think it can help you win the World Series now, and maybe it's a player with control.
Yeah.
Same story with Josue Briseño. Well, probably one of the best power hitters now in the lower minor leagues right now, and crazy, crazy pop, big time EVs. He's listed as a catcher, probably going to play first base, but he's 1,015 OPS in high A. He's 20 years old. I think being that it's a first base profile mostly, like you're probably not going to hold on to a player like that for dear life, but he could be a guy that hits 30 plus home runs at the highest level. So you're not just itching to get rid of him either. But that's another guy that teams would be lining up to potentially have him as a headliner in a package. And then who they got for Jack Flaherty in Thyron Lorenzo. It hasn't been the best year from him, but he's really started to heat up over the last month or so. Switch hitting catcher with plus power. Plenty of teams are going to have interest in him as well. And then you got a litany of other players that have been playing really well. Jaden Ham, we just had on the call up. He's had a decent year in Double A as a right-handed pitcher. They have this breakout kid at the complex, Chris Rodriguez. That could easily be a guy you trade who's generating a ton of buzz at 17. Troy Melton, pitching prospect who is really starting to put it all together now in the upper minors and AAA for them, could be another guy that they move. Like they've got a lot of options, but they could go high end, challenge the Dodgers for the most competitive trade package humanly possible, but they could also go with some of their second tier quote unquote prospects and go get guys as well. They're all, aside from Rayner, who's hurt, they're all playing really well also.
This team has the best record in the American League, and they're probably also set up as the best buyer on top of it because of what you're saying with high end prospects that aren't even their complete best, right? You have high end prospects without trading Kevin McGonigal or Max Clark, but you also have some secondary pieces that can easily net you a rental. And not just, oh, could they get a rental? Oh, yeah, easily they could get you a rental.
Hmm.
So Scott Harris and company has all the pieces at his disposal to make a huge splash. If I'm a Detroit Tigers fan, I am over the moon listening to all of this.
Oh yeah, I mean the fact that they can be in this driver's seat, and even if you don't want to go crazy, like you said, a Lorenzo, a Chris Rodriguez, a Hao Yu Lee, a Troy Melton, those guys can get you a rental for sure. And then a Briseño and a Rayner, that can get you a stud with control. So you can even still pay a steep price and hold on to your two best prospects. That's a great spot to be in.
Great spot. Let's move over to the Houston Astros. And it's so funny looking at their roster arm, there's not a ton of holes. Like, there's not a ton of spots where I'd be like, oh, wow, we have to address this. The first thought I had was outfielder, and it wouldn't be as big of a pressing need if Yordan Alvarez was on track to return, but unfortunately just suffered a setback. Per Yahoo Sports, Yordan Alvarez experienced a setback in his broken right hand on Tuesday and will see a specialist to try and solve the issue. After sitting for nearly 2 months, Alvarez started participating in workouts in June. He took swings at the team's complex Monday, but reported pain the following day. Now, Cooper Hummel has been a nice fill in, but it does seem now that they could really use a left handed outfielder.
Mm-hmm. They were attacked. We saw the headline I think recently that there are, and it is interest season, so you take everything with a grain of salt. But they were interested in Cedric Mullins. That does kind of fit the exact descriptor, though, right? Of what they could probably use right now.
Yeah.
I'd imagine is that left-handed hitting outfielder, packs a little bit of a punch, gives you some speed. That seems like a great fit, and they've clearly not been afraid to go in on the rental market. And I think this is a team. We'll talk about the farm system situation. Like they're not even really in a position to buy with control. So I'd imagine that a rental outfielder makes a ton of sense. But you bring up a great point, like because the emergence of Cam Smith, who is hitting cleanup I can't get over it. Like hitting cleanup and playing corner outfield for them right now is nuts. But the emergence of Cam Smith, how about the like I don't know if emergence is the right word, but like the development of Jake Myers
Yeah,
is really exciting as
that's what I was
well.
gonna say about Cedric Mullins because it's like Jake Myers is the center fielder here. Like
I'd almost rather go
Mullins,
corner.
yeah,
Yeah.
you'd rather go corner like left fielder, really, because that's where
Cheaper guy.
Jordan was playing, and Cooper Hummel has been okay, but I feel like if we're going to try to win a World Series, we could do a little bit better there.
Yeah, so you go corner. I think corner outfield is, and that's a lot easier to address
Yeah,
because you can now you have the Taylor Wards of the world and then the Jesus Sanchez's of the world. Like it doesn't have
Sanchez
to
is
be a.
perfect. This team needs a lefty. They are so right-handed heavy. I
They
love the
are really
addition of
right-handed heavy.
Sanchez.
Holy crap, you're right. The whole
Yeah,
bench is lefty, but those guys all stink. And then
yeah.
it's just switch hitter, switch hitter. That's
Like
all you
basically,
got.
it's like Victor Caratini just thrown right in the middle of there, and like he's been okay, but that's like your lefty.
That is nuts. That
Yeah,
is, yeah, they definitely need a left-handed bat. So left-handed hitting corner outfielder makes a lot of sense. And trying to, I mean, we're gonna go more specific on those types of targets, but there's definitely gonna be a fair amount
oh
of
yeah,
those types that you could potentially acquire. They have some guys from within, of course, like, but to your point, if you're trying to win a World Series, and I think this
yeah,
team can have those aspirations, you're not gonna put Jacob Melton in that position. I think
nah,
you're not going to put and Chas McCormick could come back healthy and be fine, but I think you want that left-handed hitting corner outfielder. So I think that's probably the most clear cut need for them, right? I mean, I know you're going
yeah,
to talk probably about the pitching staff a little bit, but I,
yeah.
I don't think they need anything crazy.
I really think that's it. I mean, you could also say, well, starting pitcher, right? Walter and Gordon, they're okay. But here's the thing: Luis Garcia and Christian Javier should be back around the deadline, so it's not like they really need them. Lance McCullers Jr. has not gotten off to the best start. He's flashed really good stuff, the stuff of old, but he hasn't really been able to put it together consistently. So I would say that starting pitching is a need for them, but they're getting back pretty damn solid reinforcements.
Yeah,
So I
Eric
don't think,
Getty should be, I think,
yeah,
what like back in a few weeks. I think is the goal. I mean, they've got a few different guys that could potentially
yeah.
jump in there.
And then I'm thinking about the bullpen, but the bullpen has been awesome.
Yeah.
It's been so good. I mean, Hader and Abreu are just lethal. And then they have like five arms who I'm trusting right now. It's a lot of lefties, and all these lefties are shoving. So you could, of course, with any of these teams, we could just say depth bullpen. Like, sure. Could they always use one? Could every team use one? Sure. But this is one of the best bullpens in Major League Baseball. And yes, the starting rotation could use an arm, but if they don't feel anyone is the right fit, I don't mind them not doing that at all. I would put all their eggs in the corner outfield left-handed bat bucket and get a really good one at the deadline and really just go for it from there.
Yeah, I agree. I think, just the classic cheap innings eater depth arm.
Yeah,
Like we always see a team just randomly pick up Michael Lorenzen or something like
sure.
that, just to have a vet in the fold. I think would make sense while you just wait for some other guys to return. Lance McCullers, you hope can stay healthy, of course. You hope that Colton Gordon and Brandon Walter can keep doing what they're doing in the meantime. But yeah, you go get a Savali or
Yeah,
somebody that you can just eat innings and call it a day. But I think if you can make the biggest impact on this roster for a potential playoff run, I think it's getting the best corner bat, preferably left side, that you could possibly get. And we'll talk more about like who that could be in future episodes, but because guys might become available in a few weeks that we didn't even think would potentially be. So I think that's probably the most impactful move that they can make.
I agree. How's the farm system looking though?
Ugh. It's one of the last ones I have to write up because I've just been dreading it.
It is funny
Bryce
how you
Matthews.
it is funny how you phrase that though, because you love doing the prospect write-ups. I've never heard you have to say, I have to write them
Yeah,
up.
I know. It's like it's like research for me. It's a blast. Like because then moving forward, every time I do a system write up, I'm up to date on everything I need to know on everybody, and I'll remember it all. So when it's players that I after I get to the top through the top five that I'm like skeptical will even stick in the big leagues for a long time, it becomes a lot less fun to dive into.
Yeah.
A lot of guys, even they had some arms I was interested in that are just struggling this year. Miguel Oyola, he's I thought could be a guy that could help them this year. Big swing and miss stuff. He's walked 40 and 54 innings in AAA.
Mm.
They've got Walker Yannick, who kind of fell into their lap in the end of the first round. I know some teams were targeting, and he's been a lot better this year as a catcher. I could see them potentially dangling Yannick, but they may want that catcher depth in that organization. Their breakout arm has been Anderson Brito, and like that's a guy that isn't getting a ton of love. That I think has some nasty stuff that probably is their best trade chip. And then maybe they can piece together a Melton or a DeZenzo or whatever. I know those guys may end up helping them a little bit right now, but I think teams could be interested in that since they're close to big league ready. So I do think with the state of the farm system and how like weak it is, like I think their minor league pitcher of the year last year, I think it was Ethan Pecco. Like he has a 6.2 ERA. Like when things like that are happening, that's when you know your system's not great. Bryce Matthews has been the guy that's really performing for them in the upper minors, their first round pick in 2023. And, they moved him to second base. It's power over everything, but it's kind of three true outcome, second base type with some speed. It's still a fun profile. I think that's the guy that they could potentially dangle and could get them. He could be in the main piece in a return for a pretty good player, but they will definitely have to get creative. And I think they may even have to move some of those young guys at the big league level. Like we saw them last year move a Loper Fido
Mm.
and move a Wagner and move like certain organizations will be okay with that instead of the lower level guy. And I think they'll probably have to do that again with one of a Dezenzo or a Melton.
Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world. And I'm also thinking to myself that this team only needs really one hole to be filled, and they have the system to really only fill one
Fill with the
hole.
one hole. Yeah.
Yeah, like they need a corner outfielder who's preferably a left-handed bat, and like a guy like Jesus Sanchez who feels like a really good fit might cost some of these prospects, but
Yeah.
likely nothing a lot more,
No,
which is
no.
but the Astros don't really need to add a lot more. So their Astros fans are hearing, man, our system sucks. But here's the thing, your system is just good enough to fill the one hole that you need. So you're actually not in the worst spot at all.
No, no, not at all. And they're better off still long term anyways because that Kyle Tucker trade put him in a spot where Cam Smith's not a prospect, quote unquote, anymore, but he's under control for 6 years. So pretty good spot there too.
And Paredes is just he's just a good player. He just he's
Fits
got
their ballpark like a glove.
17 jacks already, playing great defense, got an OPS over 800 again. Just
And they've got him what for 2 more years?
I don't know how many years, but I know it's control.
It's beyond this year. Also, Isaac Paredes might be the new like top NBA effect age player I always talk about guys that like the one that would always get me is Justice Winslow. Every time I check in, he's still somehow 26 years old. Isaac Paredes is still 26 years old. Every
Incredible.
NBA player is still somehow way younger than you imagine because they want it done and go. Isaac Paredes feels like he should be 30. He,
30, maybe
he just turned
34.
26
Like
four months ago.
if you told me Arenado and Paredes were the same age, I'd be like, I thought Paredes might be a little bit younger, but that makes sense.
Like you could do the Isaac Paredes and is younger than you could do it like the classic game where it just
Adley.
blows people's mind. What?
The Adley one always blew my
Yeah,
mind. Because it was Soto's actually younger than Adley forever. That will always be a thing because he will always be younger
he
than
will
Adley.
always be younger than him, no matter how many home runs he hits.
It doesn't matter. All right, let's move over to the New York Yankees. So I think that they have a more glaring hole, in my opinion, than the Tigers or the Astros do. And that is second base or third base. And I really do think it's third base. Jazz has 3 defensive runs saved at second and -4 at third base. Jazz has been able to play third base because he has such a cannon. That's something I didn't really know in Miami that he had, but he's got a freaking missile over there, and he can get the ball over to first base, even though Goldschmidt has saved his ass a few times with some scoops, but that's any player. But I really would prefer him to play second base. And DJ LeMahieu has come back, and he's just the below average hitter that he is. And he doesn't have lateral quickness anymore. His feet, are just getting a little bit older, right? He's just at this point in his career. And, I'll always appreciate DJ as a Yankee fan. I'll always love him. But at the same time, could definitely use an upgrade at that position. I just feel like Jazz is better suited for second. That's his natural position. Like he's been serviceable enough at third, but he wasn't traded to be a third baseman. He
No, and
was
he's grading out really well at second. Like put him
yeah,
in a
really
strength.
well. He can play second. He was playing center field for Miami there a little bit, but third base, he was just asked to learn a new position. And shocker, he's not amazing at it. That's okay. He's still great, but just I'd rather get a third baseman. And it just feels like with DJ there and Oswald Peraza just can't hit.
Yeah, I know.
I'm sorry, like he's a good defender, but he just can't hit at this point. So who's going to play third? It can't be DJ, and with Oswaldo Cabrera going out for the season, like it's DJ and like they need a third baseman desperately.
Yeah. And that's it could be a rental, right? Like
Yeah,
the Yankees, the farm system's in an interesting spot too. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but like they can still go get guys. So I think with this ball club and where it's at, I think a rental third baseman makes a ton of sense.
ton
You
of
can
sense.
still win the World Series this year, but you don't need to, you know, mortgage the future too much on a third baseman that maybe you have 1 year after this. But there's a lot of different targets potentially, I think, at that position that make a lot of sense. But I love the idea of moving Jazz over to second, where I think the defense will play a lot better.
Yeah,
It's funny when I watch Yankees games. Jazz is he gets by at third,
yeah, he
no
gets
doubt
by.
about it. It's a testament to his athleticism and everything. But he looks like a guy who is just fully relying on his athleticism and like
Correct.
reactions, and testament to him. But the actions are like look like a guy that they just dropped at third base.
Correct.
And to be honest, it's amazing that he makes it work because it's not an easy position to just drop into and learn, especially when you
Absolutely
were
not.
just dropped into center and learn. But he hasn't lost that feel at second. He
No.
looks way more natural at second. You have a better defender at second. It probably will just help him overall. And then yeah, you go get a true third baseman. I think that infield looks a lot better overall too. I agree with that.
And moving over to the next position, starting pitcher would help. Marcus Stroman is back, which I don't love. But more importantly, Luis Gil is going to come back soon, and even general manager Brian Cashman called him a deadline acquisition, which makes sense, right? You look at the Yankees' rotation with Gil back in, Rodon, Fried, Warren, Schmidt, and Gil. The issue is that there are some injury concerns within there, right? Especially, hopefully Gil comes back and finishes out the season, but you never know.
Mhm.
Clark Schmidt has dealt with his fair share of injuries. And how many innings can Will Warren really go? Right? His career high in the minor leagues is 129. Right? He's got a season with 122. He's got a season with about 108. He's already at 80. So how far can you really push this guy, right? He's a young guy. He's been pretty solid. He's shown some strikeout stuff, but at the end of the day, like he's maybe got 10 more starts left in him before the Yankees really trying to limit the innings. And then maybe in those 10 starts, like he's not going more than five. I just don't expect the Yankees to push him over 150 innings this year. And when you're already at 80 and you're kind of hoping Luis Gil comes back, like starting pitching is a need for this team, especially with Garrett Cole, like you just don't know his status.
I think
Well,
I
we do
think
know his status. He's not
yeah,
going to return. Yeah, I
gone.
don't know why I even said that. I was just hoping in my own brain, knowing he's not
He
coming
just
back.
is Wolverine.
Yeah.
And the I'm interested in how you feel about a playoff rotation of Fried, Rodon, and Clark Schmidt slash Will Warren.
It'd really be Clark Schmidt, probably slash Luis Gil.
Yeah. Oh, true. Sorry. Excuse me.
Yeah, and I
But
think I'm good with it. I'm not over the moon. I think if the offense really shows up, that is a rotation that could get you to the World Series. But then you
'cause I
get to the
just
World Series, and we'd probably likely be at a disadvantage in at least two of those three games, hoping Fried can match up against any team's number one, which he can, but at the same time, yeah,
because
I feel
I
okay
agree.
about it.
Yeah, I agree. Like they definitely need another. I think it's a similar conversation to the Astros, where it's like I think they need innings for sure, but
Yeah,
I don't know if you're going to go out and acquire somebody better than
I don't think
Clark
so either.
Schmidt slash Luis Gil,
No, you're not.
and that's okay. I'd rather then be more aggressive to address the bullpen
Agreed.
and go and then get an innings eater, right? Get that. I'll just keep throwing it. That Lorenzen type, maybe a little bit better than that, but a guy that you just know can go out there, especially through the regular season, because like you said, maybe you can preserve Warren a little bit by having those spot starts with another guy, or if someone goes down, you don't have this gaping hole in the fifth spot of the rotation. Like you'd be able to keep pace so much better if instead of Stroman pitching every fifth day, it's somebody that has a consistently low fours or high threes. So, but I look at the bullpen right now, and you would know better than me, but I think you need a leverage arm that you trust in there. Just add another option. You hope Williams and Weaver fully get right. I'm not too worried about Weaver ultimately.
No, Weaver's great. Bad last game, but he's still fantastic. He's got an ERA in the low twos. At the end of the day, like he's really the bullpen arm I trust the most. I mean, Devin Williams has been better, but he's still not elite. Like it's
Last
not
20
like,
games, he's been better than I thought. At
yeah,
least
no,
is
he's
what.
been good, right? He's on good stretches, but at the same time, and maybe it's a me thing, I haven't developed that trust where it's like, oh, Devin Williams is in, we're
You got to
winning.
earn it. You
Yeah,
got
he's
to
got
earn
to
it.
earn it. He just
But just to put it in context, because it was so bad before, last 20 games, he's got a 1.45 ERA. Most encouraging part is he's cut that walk rate to 2.8%. He's striking out
huge.
35%. But it's an 18 inning sample. So he hasn't earned that full fledged. We don't need to go get another leverage arm trust just yet because it was rough at the beginning of the year. So would you say innings eater or leverage arm? What would you prefer?
I mean, if we're playing, what would I prefer?
Or not even innings eater. I'd say like a four starter,
I mean, they
four
need
starter.
both. Like
Yeah.
they need both.
Hmm.
No doubt about it, right? Because unfortunately, they'd probably like the Yankees themselves would probably lean bullpen arms because Brian Cashman will say, "Well, Aram, Yarborough's going to return from his strained oblique soon." And I'd be
So
like, "He was fun for a little bit." You know what I'm saying? Like they'll be like, "We have a guy. What do you mean?" And I'll be like, do we? So yeah, I would prefer both. But yeah, looking at the bullpen, definitely an area where the Yankees need to add. And, common Jack McMullen just being disrespectful when I said that the Yankees losing Jake Cousins was big for this bullpen. He was like, Jake Cousins, really? Jake Cousins was great for the Yankees this season so far. Pitched to a 2.37 ERA coming over from the Brewers. I really like what I've seen from Cousins, but unfortunately they just lost him to an injury. And he was a guy I actually really trusted. And then Fernando Cruz just hit the IL with an oblique. He'll be fine, but of course he's still on the IL. We need a reliever, but it has to be left-handed.
okay.
I mean, Tim Hill's the only lefty we got, Arm.
Yeah,
And I
that's
love
fair.
Tim Hill. I actually
But
don't
yeah,
mind Tim Hill at all. Should have been in that game instead of Nestor, but that's for another time.
yeah,
But he's our
I,
only lefty. Like he
yeah,
can't just be the only lefty in this bullpen. So we need a high leverage guy and we need a lefty. So preferably if we can answer both, that'd be fantastic. But I also like to probably add multiple to this bullpen.
yeah. No, it couldn't hurt, and I think they can do it. The farm system. The only guy that I deem untouchable is George Lombard Jr., and I don't think that's a guy that they're going to move. It's just not going to happen. So Spencer Jones is having the best stretch of his professional career. He's still whiffing a ton. So maybe that's an opportunity to sell high on him. But he's really performing well, and he got up to AAA, and he's hitting well there. That could be enough to get teams to say, okay, maybe he can find enough contact here to be that Joey Gallo type in center field, and we'll take him in a return.
Don't say that name around here.
I'm sorry. Um, I do like the pitching that the development of some of their arms. Bryce Cunningham, who they took in the second round last year, has been phenomenal. And I've been really impressed with what he has been doing on the mound. That's a guy that I think a lot of teams would be excited to potentially add. He's a 1.93 ERA so far this year in nearly 50 high A innings. And then Elmer Rodriguez Cruz, I think he might be a top 100 guy in our next update. Like this guy is dirty. They got him in the Carlos Narvaez deal, and obviously Narvaez doing great stuff for the Red Sox. But I think the Yankees
Imagine
can.
imagine that trade being like huge. Like
It,
Narvaez for Rodriguez Cruz was just
and
a
both
nothing trade that barely made like the end line of any baseball website. And now the Red Sox have their catcher. The Yankees might have a diamond in the rough.
it might be the Yankee. You can make a case that he's the Yankees' best pitching prospect. Like you really
Wow.
could. He's gross, dude. And so he has a 2.47 in 76 innings at the high A level, 91 strikeouts, but the stuff is just crazy. And I mean, hitters just, I just did the Yankee system. We're about to publish it soon, but just that was the most fun video dive for me for a 21-year-old that can attack you with like an assortment of offerings, and averages 95 on the fastball. So those are two guys that teams are always going to get excited about the opportunity to add an arm. And then potentially their best performer this year has been Cam Schlitter, who has been shoving between AA and AAA. And he might even just get up to the show and get an opportunity for them. And maybe he's a guy that they mix in there. But as you know, the Yankees generally like to go after that proven talent. But Cam Schlitter, since he got promoted to AAA, 21 and a thirds innings, 33 strikeouts, 8 walks, a 1.69 ERA,
Mm.
6'6 right hander whose stuff has just been fantastic. So they've got a trio of arms that teams would have interest in. You could dangle still a Ben Hess, though he's been walking guys more than you'd think. Spencer Jones has reclaimed some value. Um, they can piece something together here. And then I didn't even mention Carlos Legrand, who, the ERA is a little bit inflated because he's walked guys since getting to AA, but he also touched 102 and he's 6'7. So plenty of teams would have interest in him. So I don't like this system overall, but they do have a handful of arms that teams would be happy to acquire in return for a guy that they're moving at the deadline.
Perfect. All right, let's move over to the Tampa Bay Rays. And the Rays are also interesting because I do think that they're going to buy, but we never truly know the conversations that are going on in that front office. Could they buy and sell at the same time? I'm going to operate under the assumption that they are just straight up buyers. They've been
Yeah,
playing too good a baseball. And we could say, well, maybe in some years they've been good and still sold off pieces. Yeah, maybe. But at the current moment, I view the Rays as one of the best teams in the American League. Their
I agree.
record shows it. And we're going to speak about them as if they are full out buyers. That's fair, right?
I think they see an opportunity at the division here, and it's a
Yeah.
little different than where sometimes they're comfortably in the playoffs, but it's a wild card, and they have a chance to win the division here, and I think that's enough to maybe push them to be a bit more aggressive. I think they probably look at the Blue Jays and say, "Hey, we can be better than them," and they look at the Yankees and say, "Hey, if we add, we have a chance to overtake them." Um, no, I think for the sake of this, absolutely, we should operate like they're just going to fully buy.
And I think the most pressing need is a sustainable catcher. And now this has been a need for the Rays for, I mean, I don't know how long. I mean, when's the last time the Rays had a really solid catcher? I'm almost thinking
What
like,
the like Mike Zunino was good for a year or two.
yeah, he
Like
hit all those home runs that one year. Was Miguel Montero, was he a Ray at some point? I think that name came to my mind. I could just be wrong. I know he was a Cub, and I think he was a Diamondback.
Diamondback, Cub, Blue Jay, National.
Oh, he was never a Ray, so I just made
No,
that
but
up.
you could have convinced me that. You could have convinced me that.
Yeah, just I should have had you not look it up and just pretend Miguel Montero was a Ray. Um, Danny Jansen, who is a Ray, isn't cutting it. I mean, he's been fine. He's been okay. But I'd like the Rays to add a catcher, and I'm sure the Rays would as well because I'm not sure Matt Thaiss is really
They
the
like
answer
hate
behind him.
catchers though. They
I
prefer
know,
not to have good
but I
catchers.
did feel like them going after Jansen was a sign that they know internally that they technically need a warm body
Yeah.
because the other bodies they were using were cold. I
Yeah.
mean, the Rays have had the
It's
worst catching situation ever for a long time, and then they brought in Jansen. Was like, wait, I've seen you start games. That's huge. The
yeah.
Rays never had a guy who's like started games, and now he's starting games, and he's been a little bit below average.
Yeah.
And by a little bit, I mean he's been below average.
Yeah.
So this is the need. I mean, we'll talk about a couple others, but this is it right here.
Yeah, because I look at some of the other spots, like I look at shortstop, they're gonna get Hassan Kim back.
Yeah,
So
I wrote down shortstop and just thinking about it now, I was like, wait, Kim's coming back. So it's not like they
and
need to go get a shortstop.
talk about a deadline
Walls.
acquisition for
Yeah.
them. That's gonna be a shot in the arm
Yeah,
to,
absolutely.
to get him. I mean, even if he's not raking right away, he will not be worse than Taylor Walls. And he's gonna defend, I think, maybe not fully as good, but it's going to be right there if he's healthy and moving. And Caballero's been fine too. I think Matt Tice has actually been all right for them, and so
Yeah.
maybe they're going to ride that tandem and be okay with it because they're the Rays. But I would not mind canvassing the catcher market if I were them. It just is tough because it's like how many teams are going to potentially dangle catchers? You think how
Not
many
many.
teams? It might be tough to actually find a catcher out there that's better than Danny Jansen, as crazy as it is to say. I think they should try. I agree. Like that's an area where they could upgrade. But I think the sake of this conversation too is that the rest of the team actually is pretty good. Like you're gonna be hard pressed
They
to
are
find a gaping hole. You could have your questions about the Mangum Simpson combination. Jake Mangum just homered again today. By the
inside
way,
the
as we're
Parker.
recording this.
You know what was more shocking about that inside the Parker was Denzel Clark not robbing it. I think that was the first time I saw a failed robbery by Denzel Clark.
That's so funny. I like that's the crazy part is like you now assume that he's going to catch the ball every single time,
Every
no
single
matter
time.
where it is. But like, one can't believe it took this long for Jake Mangum to get an opportunity. And like you had like the Marlins just say, yeah, we don't need you to have take a shot with us. Like, well, I don't know why.
Well, their outfield is filled. They had Brian De La Cruz there for a
Yeah,
while.
Mangum's been great. Chandler Simpson has been much better since he's come back up. But part of me does still probably want a corner outfield bat with some
Yeah.
thump. Maybe just like a righty corner outfield bat with some thump that just in case Mangum slows down or Simpson, is just not quite producing in the OPS department enough between the OBP and just getting on base in general. Like
So I
that's
thought
the
of,
one area I don't think it's pressing, but I could see a right-handed power bat in the outfield being of some use.
I see what you mean, especially right-handed, because they do have, Cam Meisner, who came on the show. He was awesome. He got sent back down to the minors, but he is someone potentially who could get hot and help them in a corner outfield. And I just like what? I kind of believe in Jake Mangum. Am I crazy? Like I think he
No,
might
I don't
just
think you
like
are.
be a good answer out there. So, especially with the Rays, where among the contenders, I'm like, do they really want to trade for their farm to plug a hole like that? I totally see what you mean. I just think it's unlikely unless something
Yeah,
just falls into their lap.
I was just thinking about it because Josh Lowe, you don't need to have him facing lefties every single day either.
Yes.
Mangum is a little bit more productive from the left side, and then Chandler Simpson's a lefty. So maybe it's not even a huge player. Like the Rays have a perpetual 40-man crunch, right? So maybe it's a prospect that they're going to have to add to the 40-man at the end of the year and to
Yeah.
protect from the Rule 5 draft. And they're like, fine. And they go get like a platoon bat, even a short platoon bat. I think a short platoon bat of some type, like I think maybe that you could say Christopher Morel is that. I'm looking at Morel
Uh,
splits right now, but like maybe just someone that does it better than Morel. Like Morel's a 774 OPS against righties, but 33% K rate. I wouldn't trust that guy in the playoffs at all. I'd like a short platoon bat for the outfield. But
Yeah.
that's really it. I think if it's catcher or short platoon bat for the outfield.
I
Like
know
maybe a David Fry, both. How about both?
that would be actually electric. David Fry just also makes sense on the Rays. Like
It's
David Fry being
such
a
a Rays
guardian
player.
also makes sense on the Rays. I love that shout. Another one that I had that's more Galaxy brain, but it kind of feels like a Rays trade. I just don't know if the Nationals would do it. Do you think the Nationals might be sick of the Kyber Ruiz
Do you think the
experiment?
Rays are they going to eat the money?
True, it would be money, but maybe if the Nationals ate some money, like would they? I don't know. Probably
Just
not
don't
because
want to look at him
he,
anymore.
he
Just
did
don't want
sign
to.
the extension, but I just feel like that would be a guy who the Nationals would be done with, and then maybe he goes to the Rays and
It
somehow
just
unlocks something.
wouldn't shock me.
And the
Or it's
Rays, they don't have that much money on the books. Like they could take on some of that money, and he probably
is he
wouldn't
better than
cost them
Danny
much.
Jansen? Like,
He's got more. I can dream on more.
yeah, maybe,
You know what I'm saying?
maybe.
Like,
I think overall though, like you put Kim in that lineup, you have Caballero on the bench too. Mead has started to settle into his platoon role. It's a balanced lineup. I would just maybe look for a short platoon right hander, see what you can get out of catcher, and then I don't think you're gonna be too eager to add to the pitching staff, right? I mean,
I wrote down starting pitcher, but they're getting back Shane McClanahan. I mean, they can,
they
but
also have Joe Boyle shoving in
yeah,
AAA, Ian Seymour shoving in AAA.
they don't need an arm.
I don't think so
It's just
either.
because the rotation, you look at all the names and you're like, I mean, there is injury concerns there, but if Shane McClanahan is coming back and they have those two starters that you mentioned, doesn't feel very raised to then go add like an innings eater. I mean, they
Well,
have, right? They've added a Savali before, but you know, maybe
and they
that's
have
still in
Dom
their
they have
lane.
Dom Keegan in AAA right now, catcher. Who I think he can hit, man. And he was hurt to start the year, but he's just now kind of getting back into it. I think that could be a guy that they end up just calling him up, and it's like, oh, no, there's Dom Keegan mashing, and I guess they just upgraded from within again.
True.
So, I mean, that might be an option too. Dom Keegan, the last 7 games in AAA, he has 12 hits, 2 homers. Um, he again late start to the year because he's coming off the IL, 80 OPS already. So that could be a guy that they end up just saying, hey, we'll throw him into the fold too. They might just do nothing and upgrade from within. Maybe they go get a reliever here or there, but that doesn't really fit their mold. I, they're gonna just go get a forgotten platoon bat and call it a day.
I think so too, but this team's good.
Good. It's a
They
good
are
team.
good. Anything else on the system before we
It's
move?
loaded.
Yeah.
The thing is, they're just never going to trade from it. You could argue this is one of the best farm systems in Major League Baseball. Carson Williams starting to heat up in AAA. Still probably not a guy that you're factoring into the big league equation this year. But you mentioned the two arms and Joe Boyle and Ian Seymour who are just shoving in AAA, who can both be options pretty quickly. Dom Keegan is doing what he's doing at catcher, and then maybe they dangle in Xavier Isaac because they're just worried that he may not never hit enough because he's got 70 power and a team may be interested in him. They've also got Trey Morgan, doing his thing right now in AAA, starting to settle in there, who can play first base and corner outfield, but he's another left-handed bat. So it is funny when you go through their farm system. It's a lot of left-handed bats too, but they've got a lot of really good arms, a lot of interesting bats, and they could go get an impact player if they wanted to. That's the one thing they could go make a trade for a player with control and just
Yeah.
say like and see it as a good value proposition. And if they do that between Xavier Isaac, Aiden Smith, who they got in the Arozarena trade, Brody Hopkins, who they got in the Arozarena trade, who's been shoving, Trey Morgan, Braden Taylor, they've got a lot of really good prospects that they could go get anyone they wanted if they wanted to.
Rays are in a good spot. All right, before we move on to the Blue Jays, Mariners, Angels, Red Sox, Rangers, and Guardians, our first break. All right, let's evaluate the Toronto Blue Jays. So, Blue Jays have been one of baseball's best teams lately, right? In the month of June, they've been really, really solid. I was just on Toronto Sports Network. That was a really fun spot, and we were just talking about, The resurrection of George Springer with Addison Barger, with
Amazing.
Alejandro Kirk becoming one of the best catchers in baseball. They got so many irons in the fire, which means there's not that many holes to address. But the number one that I wanted to address, even though they're going to get back Dalton Varsho, is speed. Something that I mentioned with the Tigers. The Tigers rank 30th in stolen bases, and the Blue Jays rank 26th. And the Blue Jays have some power, right? Of course, they could use a little bit more, but they're going to get back Anthony Santander soon, so that's not really an area of concern. But adding Santander, adding Varsho, again, you're still lacking some speed here, and they were probably hoping that they could get that with Jonathan Clase, but he was just sent back down to the minors because he couldn't really get his footing because he's not really hitting it all, right? So, how do they address speed? That'll be something that you and I will talk about. But I guess if I'm looking at a specific position, because we'll go back to the speed thing in a little bit, I guess I would say starting pitcher
Yeah.
because you got Bassett, you got Brios, you got Gosman. You're good there. Eric Lauer has been great. Will it continue? Remains to be seen. I'm hoping it does, but again, it remains to be seen. And then you have Max Scherzer. And I was asked on Toronto Sports Network, what about expectations for him? And I was hyping up the Blue Jays a ton because they deserve it. But I was like, that's the one where I would temper expectations a little bit.
What do you mean? He just throttled your Yankees.
Yeah, but that's my Yankees who suck right now and
Yeah,
can't
no,
beat
I
any
know.
American League
I,
East team.
I think you have to just temper the expectations from a health perspective too. Like
Exactly.
when he's out there, he
Yeah,
averaged 94 on the fastball.
pretty
If
good.
you could guarantee me that you're gonna get that caliber of stuff from Scherzer, you can't guarantee the outcome, but just that caliber of stuff, I'd feel decently good about it. But you
You too?
can't. You
Yeah, you
can't.
can't. That's the thing.
You can't. So this is
He's
another
40.
one where. But what's this playoff rotation? It's Gosman, Barrios, Bassett.
That's been their playoff rotation. Remember we were talking about Paredes like being
Yes.
like deceptively 26 years old. Like if you
Mhm.
told me that that's been their front three for the last 20 years, I'd be like, that makes sense.
Yeah. No, I
You
agree.
know what I'm saying?
This is a team that I look at their situation, all old arms. I think that can help them this year, but this is one where it's like I don't know if I want the innings eater.
No, I
I
want
might try.
control.
I might try to get a guy that can grab the ball in one of the three games in our
Yeah.
playoff rotation and be under control as well. Of course, that means you're giving up a haul, but I think when you look at this roster, you locked up Vladdy, Barger's emerged. Everybody's controllable except for Bo Bichette. And I think the Blue Jays are fine with that at this point.
Yeah.
And Bichette's been playing fine, but like
Yeah.
that's not enough to be like,
He's like
oh,
he's like fourth in Major League Baseball in hits.
it's so funny. But like at the same time, like yeah, you're still looking at the rest of your roster. You're saying, hey, we're very controllable here. I would be feeling like we could go and fork up a decent return and go into win now mode, but also just try to get a good controllable pitcher like a Edward Cabrera. Maybe you roll the dice on a Sandy. Maybe you roll the dice on and those are just the guys that come off to my mind. A Mitch Keller, and I know Keller's not the most exciting in the world, but
Sandy. That's the answer.
it's a roll of the dice. Maybe he's not great for you, but if he isn't great for you, okay, then you go Gosman, Barrios, Bassett in the
Yeah.
playoffs. Sandy's still going to get you innings. He's still going to be that back end of the rotation guy for
He has
you.
been better lately, and I feel
Yes,
like that's the roll of the dice move that I think the Blue Jays could be
they
in
have to.
yeah, they
'Cause
have to.
nothing else you're going to do. Like I think they can make the playoffs and they can be a good team, and of course, make the playoffs, anything can happen. But realistically, that's the upside roll of the dice that can shoot them into a run this year. And if it doesn't, okay, great. You got 2 more years of Sandy. And they need that because this rotation's average age is like 38. So, like, I do think that helps.
And that's also like the one I would say glaring hole for the Blue Jays. It's not necessarily glaring because again, you do have Bassman. I combined Gosman and Bassett into one guy. Bassett, Gosman, and Barrios, bunch of B name, whatever. So you have those three, but in the like I'm talking about speed in the lineup. Like it's because they don't really have any holes, right? Nathan Lucas could be considered potentially a hole in center. They're getting back Varsho, right? They're getting back Anthony Santander. They don't really have any areas of concern in the lineup. And the bullpen has been pretty damn good. Yara Rodriguez has found a home. They got a couple of different arms. Of course, like depth bullpen arms could always be used, but they have their closer in Jeff Hoffman, who's put up an ERA below 2 in the month of June. He's been just kind of up and down, right? Started unbelievable, was terrible, and is now right back to being the Jeff Hoffman that we know. Like, I feel confident in him as the closer. So really it's just depth bullpen that could be a 28th ranked prospect to go get you an arm.
Yeah.
But that's why they should put their eggs in the basket for Sandy. So
Hmm.
let's talk about their farm system. Do they have the pieces to make a trade like that?
Or what about a Chris Sale?
Ooh, is it are the Braves going to sell? Yeah, I mean they're
They
worse
have
than the
to.
Marlins. They're worse than the
They're
Marlins.
worse. Schwellenbach just went down.
Yeah, I mean what can you do?
Maybe like that, but like for that type of player, it it's interesting because it's not the best farm system by any stretch. I would say it's closer to uh, the lower end, but they've had a lot of players
Would
start
ranking them
to.
20th make sense?
I think you could argue it's a little bit better than that now.
18th.
Yeah, I would say somewhere around there, like closer to the middle of the pack. But they've got players that I think, sometimes some organizations aren't going to like value that a prospect as high as others, so you may not be able to pull that trade off or whatever it may be. They've got some guys that I just think would be intriguing to just about anybody. And look at Arjun Namala. I know Blue Jays fans are probably like, no, 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 no. But
There's no way they trade him. No way.
I,
Because think about it, like after
yeah,
Bichette leaves, your shortstop of the future,
it's Namala.
I think he has to be untouchable.
Yeah, so then it becomes difficult. Trey Savage has been awesome, and
I
I
think
think he
they
could headline a deal. But that could also be a guy that's in your rotation next year.
I
So
agree. I think Blue Jays fans would say he's untouchable too.
then it gets real tough because then Elvis, I'm sure Blue Jays fans would drive him to the airport themselves. But um,
Shout out
Ricky
to Ramos
Tiedemann,
Martinez.
Elvis Martinez, yeah, like Ricky Tiedemann, he's still out, but that's the ceiling is so high and so exciting. You could
That's the piece I think
that
that would headline a big time trade.
And then I think super underrated is Josh Kasevich, but I don't know if he can like headline it, but he could be a good complimentary piece. He's been out the whole year, but really, really underrated infielder who's big league ready and can stick at shortstop, who's elite hit tool. But it's going to be hard to put a deal together like that. I don't think you trade Savage, but Cal Steven has been awesome, the second round pick from that same draft, who's been 190 ERA and 75 and 2/3 innings this year between low A and high A. He's flying through the minor leagues potentially too. But that I don't know. That's not going to get you one of those guys. It's going to be tough. Like I'm trying to think of a Chris Sale with the money that he's owed. That could be something that the Blue Jays leverage so that Chris Sale may not command as
Mhm.
ridiculous of a return. So maybe, and the Blue Jays clearly, like, in certain spots, they'll be willing to take on money, especially when some of these guys are coming off the books. The Braves need a shortstop. I could see them loving a Kasevich type. If you went like, and maybe you try Tiedemann, but if you go Kasevich and Steven and a couple other pieces, maybe a Loper Fido, because they have a trillion corner outfielders, maybe you can just piece together enough here to pry away Chris Sale because they're selling. But the thing is you could maybe piece together enough value, but at the same time, a team could end up outbidding.
So
And that's going to be the challenge. But if you put together a Elvis, Kasevich, Steven, and whatever, like maybe there's enough in aggregate value, but other teams might be able to give you that headliner. So it'll depend on what the Braves want. But I could see the Braves just preferring like a wide ranging return. So who knows? But I think they could put something together that is competitive enough for one of these arms out there between the guys in the upper minors. I agree though. Namala is probably untouchable. Savage is probably close to that. And even if you want to just for the sake of argument make Tiedemann untouchable, Kasevich, Steven, Loperfido, Marudis, Elvis, they could Alan Roden, I think is still very underrated. They maybe can piece something together, but it's going to be tough without one of those guys. So they'll have a decision to make for sure.
after hearing your breakdown of the system, in my eyes, I think they would just be in the elite rental category, and then in the off season, give money to Framber, give money to Michael King, maybe one of those pitchers, because
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it like they're not even gonna take Tiedemann for sale. I mean, they might. Like that would be a good piece. But
but
then what?
he's too
Other
unknown.
if Sale is available, another team is offering a better package. I'm also thinking about Sandy. I mean, if you're Peter Bendix calling about potentially trading Sandy to the Blue Jays, and Ross Atkins goes, Namala and Yasavage are untouchable. You're not getting him. You're just
You're not doing,
not.
yeah, because
So
even
here's my thought.
yeah,
I'm thinking, and I'm still not even sold that this team trades anybody, but I just keep going back to the fact that I don't know if this guy is the right fit for this team, and I'll tell you why. And maybe I've been listening to too many Padres fans talk about this, but I see where they're coming from. Potentially trading Dylan Cease. He's a free agent after the season. You're going to get back some starting pitching reinforcements. I know AJ Preller, he might then go buy a different starting pitcher. But Dylan Cease can't pitch against the Dodgers. He just can't. His numbers against the Dodgers are terrible. And that might matter to the Padres a little bit if they feel like they could recoup some decent assets for him and then maybe then go get a different starting pitcher and try and make a run here. But I don't know. It's like Cease has had his issues, and it almost feels like if you're the Blue Jays with a Tiedemann headlining it, that might get you Cease. And who knows? Cease could get hot and turn into an ace down the stretch. And then you have him, and then yeah, he's probably gone after the year. But if he likes it in Toronto, then you can re-sign him, or you can go a different way with Framber or King or any of the other starting pitchers on the market next year. I guess my thing is, am I reading too far into Padres fans not liking Dylan Cease, but also understanding where they're coming from? But the Padres just might just be like, no, we're not trading Dylan Cease. We're going
yeah,
for it, and I get
yeah.
that. I totally do.
Who knows what they do? I could see them being aggressive, but I do think the rental side of things could make a lot more sense, and then they just throw money at guys this offseason. There's so many arms that are
Mhm.
intriguing and available after this going off season. So yeah, and if they go the rental route, like they've got more than enough pieces to be able to go get high end rental and throw them into the rotation and go from there. So that may ultimately be their best bet. I do think they need to go for a higher end arm
I agree.
if they're going to do it.
Yeah, high end rental, and then get some speed. Maybe a depth bullpen guy. Need some
Yeah, they
speed on these
definitely need
Jays.
another bullpen piece would be good, but bullpen's been good.
Bullpen has been good. Moving on to the Seattle Mariners. I'm identifying two positions in the infield. Third base, Williamson is a very solid defender, but he hasn't really hit yet. And then at second base, Cole Young is 21 years old, right? He's not one of these classic rookies that's striking out 30%, 35% of the time. Like he doesn't look completely overmatched. But at the same time, the contact quality isn't good. And you might think, well, they have Dylan Moore. Well, Dylan Moore has been so terrible offensively lately. I just
Chill.
don't know if you can really put him in the big league lineup every day consistently and be like, man, this position. So if he's not there to help, that's why I'm identifying third base and second base as areas of concern when normally Dylan Moore could be the guy that you slot in. But right now, you just can't slot him in.
I don't trust Dom Canzone either. I mean, I know he's been playing well for them in small sample size, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm holding on to that and saying he's going to do this over
Yeah.
the course of the year. It's bats for sure, as it always is. A tale as old as time. It's better offensively this year. A big reason why is because Cal
Oh,
Rowley's
Raleigh.
Barry Bonds, but
Literally.
JP has been so much better, and Julio, I don't even know who he is, but he's above league average.
Been
Um,
incredible defensively. Been one
yeah,
of the best defensive outfilders in baseball. Put some respect on my guy's name.
yeah, great. We thought did you plan for JBJ? This,
JBJ? JBJ?
we're talking about glove first Julio Rodriguez. I can't do
You
that,
just said he's
man.
an above average hitter. You just said that.
I know 107 WRC plus.
That's above average.
But I'm with you. The infield, right? Okay, I like Cole Young long term, but how many more goes do you have with this rotation? You don't have time for Cole Young
Yeah.
to struggle maybe the whole year. I like Cole Young in a I think a role with them, but between Williamson and Young, to your point,
Yeah.
it's just you need a vet there, and then potentially Canzone as well, as good as he's been. I think is it second base, is it third base, maybe either,
Yeah.
whatever you can get.
Yeah.
I think
They
probably makes
just
the most
need
sense.
someone who can play both those positions. Like IKF is kind of perfect. Kind
IKF would
of.
be good.
Yeah. It's not sexy, but he gets the job done and he's better than those two guys.
But can these cowards aim higher?
I want them to, but
The
I'm also a
Rosarena trade
realist.
was great. It was such a tease though. It's like, okay, you gave up good pieces and look, it's worked out. He's been very good for you. You're not losing sleep over Brody Hopkins and Aiden Smith could both be really good players. I think Hopkins is a great pitching prospect.
So
Randy
maybe they should
Rosarena
lose sleep.
has a 132 WRC plus. They should be thrilled with that, and they should do it again. They have a really good farm system. They're going to get Robles back, so that's why the outfield part doesn't make me as much concern. I think it really is just the infield. So, second or third base, whichever comes up first. I would rather address third because
Me too.
I think Cole Young has a better chance to just settle in as that nine hitter who grinds out ABs for you
Me too.
and gives you a little bit of speed and defense and whatever. You're giving up a lot by having a glove first third baseman in Ben Williamson right now.
Yeah.
So in terms of the offensive production, go get a slugging third baseman. Like I'd be calling about Geno Suarez every single day.
Every day.
Every time they lose, again, fortunately they're playing the Giants, so for the Diamondbacks' sake,
You're
they're
such
actually
a
going to get
hater.
back into this thing. But it, I would just be calling every single day.
Yeah.
Just like, hey,
Be like, what'd Gino eat for lunch today?
yeah,
Does he
you
need
sick of
lunch?
him yet? You guys aren't good. You're not going anywhere. I know you just beat the Giants, but you're still not better than them. Like, as much as I'm joking about the Giants, like the Giants are, I think another reason why the T-backs are probably going to need to look and sell, even if they do sweep here. Like Giants are gonna settle back in again. Um, I
Here,
think you got
here
to
was
be
my
calling on third
thought,
base.
and I was down bad as a Yankee fan at third base, and I'm like, does Heimer Candelario have anything left in him after he got DFA'd by the Reds? Like, that's how down bad I was, and I'm sure Mariners fans saw him get DFA'd, and they're like, I mean, maybe, could he? Maybe. I mean, putting Heimer Candelario's bat when he couldn't hit a Great American in T-Mobile doesn't sound like a recipe for success. Does that sound like a recipe for you?
Doesn't sound good. It does
Yeah.
not sound good. But Yankee Stadium, I could hear that a little bit more.
I'm already talking myself into it.
Um, yeah, 'cause,
But for the Mariners, there's not a lot of great options, which is tough. Because especially with the Cardinals doing well, I mean, Arenado is just the easy answer. But it's like, I just don't know if the Cardinals are going to trade him.
him in that ballpark too, all of a
And
sudden he
also,
becomes.
doesn't Arenado have somewhat of a no trade clause where he
I
can
think
like
so.
choose and like would he want to go to Seattle and hit there to end his career and see all of his career numbers just go in the toilet?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, no, I would not want to do that if I were him either. He's a human being at the end of the day. Like, he's trying to make the Hall of Fame. What should I do with the tail end as I start to tail off? T-Mobile,
Yeah,
perfect.
T-Mobile.
With a batter's eye that makes Teoscar Hernandez be like, I couldn't see.
It actually blind. They puts laser pointers into your pupils apparently.
Every pitcher at home's got a 0.4 ERA.
Um, what I don't. What do you do?
I don't
There's like
know.
not that many. And second base is the worst position in the history of baseball right now. So I don't. I
Yeah.
don't fucking know.
We're like arguing over Brandon Donovan and others. No, that's disrespectful. I'm sorry,
Ozzy
Cardinals fans.
Albies.
Ozzy Albies,
I'm just
third
pimping
best
out
second.
Braves right now.
Could Albies be on the move? Well, DePoto doesn't want to take on his $9 million a year. That's way too much.
Yeah, that's steep. That's steep. But I like that's the only one I can think of. So like, but yeah, second slash third baseman. Everyone, dude, Gino's gonna end up commanding a haul because everyone needs a third baseman. Um,
It's gonna be a bidding war. They might get like they third base is such a valuable position right now with Gino Suarez. Like the Yankees and Mariners might both send the Diamondbacks a prospect, and they get to like share him. Like
it's
we'll
like
get him
just
on the
joint
weekends. You
custody.
guys take him during the week, just so
Like,
we can have anyone.
because all the other guys that you thought could be an option, like Luis Rengifo, sucks this year.
And the Angels are buying.
Yeah, that's true. They will never sell. Ryan McMahon, you have him at home. So I don't know. I don't know.
I'd rather have Williamson than McMahon, I think.
That's what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
I'm good. Um,
We'll talk about
Miguel
it more
Vargas, maybe you could really try to pry. You know, he would stop hitting immediately.
immediately.
So I don't know. I don't know. But you got to try to get an infielder. That's
You have to.
all I
You got to
got.
figure it out. And who knows, right? The Yankees needed a third baseman, and they traded for Jazz Chisholm,
That is
right?
true.
And they just put him there. So,
Identify a guy that maybe can move to the position that's willing to.
and we'll talk about that closer to the deadline when the sellers become more obvious. Um, I also mentioned starting pitcher just because it's like how much longer is the Emerson Hancock experience going to last? Now they will get Bryce Miller probably back in August. So again, it doesn't really need an upgrade. But should they be in the market for a starting pitcher if the right guy falls in their lap? Yes. And then I was looking at the bullpen similarly to the Yankees. It's funny, the Mariners and the Yankees have a lot of the same needs. Give him a left-handed reliever. I mean, Gabe Spire is great, but again, he's the only lefty. He could use a breather, right? I would love a lefty specialist, just more left-handed pitchers in this bullpen. That is very solid, but again, they could use a reliever. So it really is just addressing this third base position and adding a left-handed reliever. And, there might not be that many options, but Dipoto, let's get creative. Let's make a big-time trade. You got the system to do it, and the Mariners aren't the best team in the world, but they also at the same time don't have that many holes to fill.
And they're swinging it as well as they have. I mean,
And sorry,
overall
I
as a
think
team.
Julio's going to get hot here. Sorry, I
I hope
do.
so.
Sorry, I'm going to keep
That's
believing
where
in
no,
Julio
he has
freaking Rodriguez.
he has the season salvaging August/September, and then we say, oh, next year he's gonna put it all together, and then he's the worst player ever in April, and we
No,
rinse and repeat.
he's going to put up a 3-week stretch in August, and I'm going to tweet every day at you.
And he's gonna salvage a 120 WRC plus. We're gonna pretend it was a good season, and
I'm not going to pretend. Well, I might. I'll come up with some
he's
narratives
just
that
exhaust. And I hate that I'm like hating on him. It's just like he exhausts me. I don't
at
get it.
25 years old, he's exhausting you.
24 and a half.
24 and a half. He's not even 25 yet.
Just I don't know. Give me one full good season.
We
Like
just
again.
said he hits in the freaking Sahara.
Yeah, he
The
does. He
fences
does.
are 5,000 feet from home plate, and he's got laser beams pointing at his eyes from the batter's eye.
He does hit in a mirror maze, apparently. So it is what it
You're not going to give
is.
him the benefit of the doubt?
No, it's year what 4? I
Yeah, so what? He got called up
figure it
early
out.
because he's a freak. I love Julio. I'm never giving up on you, Julio. All right, let's go to the Angels. Buyers. Oh, wait, farm system. Farm system for the Mariners first.
Loaded, absolutely loaded. I mean, they can go do whatever they want for the most part. I think with them, you called up one of your top guys in Cole Young. I don't think you trade Cole Emerson. He's turned into a really good shortstop now. I think that's your future at the position.
Yeah.
Everyone else can go. Harry Ford is playing out of his mind,
He's
and
been a prospect for a decade.
I think he's the most tenured futures game player of all time. I think he's on his
Does he go to
fourth.
get?
He's on his fourth futures game.
That's
He's been doing the
electric.
futures game as long as this show has existed.
What I will
Um,
say is I have a 100% hit rate on eye test guys from one at bat or maybe two at bats and watching batting practice. 100% hit rate, by the way. He did not enter my list at any time during the four futures games. Doesn't
well,
mean he can't make it. I'm just saying I have a 100% hit rate and he's not in that. So,
he's playing out of his mind right now. He looks a lot. This is the best version of Harry Ford I've seen. He looks really
okay.
good to behind the dish. He looks like an everyday catcher. They've got one of those at the big league level and then some. So Ford is a guy that I think you're definitely dangling, and he requires a 40-man spot. So that's a guy. Felony and Celestin, you'd be selling low because he's struggling, but low level, high prized IFA guy that you could definitely move. Las Montes, he's very fun power bat, but I don't think I don't think he's untouchable if you can go get somebody that's really impactful because it's a DH type of profile ultimately. Michael Arroyo's been playing out of his mind this year as an infielder. Johnny Farmelo's been hurt all year. I would hold on to him. Durangelo Sanger and Ryan Sloan you're probably holding on to. But then Ty Pete has some interest as a toolsy fun player. So like I think between Las Montes, Felny and Cellison, and Harry Ford being the most likely to get moved, they could go get a lot of different players and Arroyo as well. Like they've got a lot of pieces that they could potentially move.
Someone in our Discord, and I apologize, please ping me in the Discord once you hear this episode. He was saying that I think it might have been Brennan, the huge Mariners fan in our Discord, he was
Yeah,
saying
yeah, yeah.
Ty Pete he's in every single Mariners trade proposal because he is that tooled up guy who you could dream on, but
But
it's like
you're just done
you're
dreaming.
willing to trade. So he's there, Miguel Andujar, in terms of the old
Yeah,
fashioned in every single mock trade humanly possible.
love it.
All right, let's move on to excuse me, the Los Angeles Angels. It's so funny
Always biased.
you mentioned Renhefo. They could use a third baseman. I mean,
But they can't trade Renhefo.
but Renhefo is just mouth's getting dry. Third base is like, I mean, what are the Angels realistically going to do? I want to hype them up, but at the same time, like, Renhefo is good as a utility guy, and he's been playing a lot in that utility role, but the vast majority of his games for the Angels have been at third. And he's just not that good of a third baseman. Defensively, offensively, like I'd like a mainstay there, and they signed Anthony Rendon, but obviously he's not going to do it. So if the Angels truly are going to buy, like they need to be in the third base market. Because again, Renhefo just isn't good enough. And then you look at starting pitching: Kikuchi, Soriano, Anderson. Those are your three. Jack Kohanowicz, Kyle Hendricks. Like we could get somebody, and then bullpen. I just wrote down add anybody good. I mean, when you
Yeah.
look at the Angels, you're happy they're here, and we also I know they're gonna buy. Like this has been the best Angels team in a while, and they bought with worse.
Yep.
This is what they do. And can I mean you can blame them. I was about to say, can you blame them? You certainly
Yes.
can blame them.
Yes.
But to their credit, or not really to their even credit, I'm just giving them words that they don't deserve. I'm sure they notice. I'm sure they notice that the American League is wide open. And that the Astros are good, but they're not unbeatable. The Mariners are good, but not unbeatable. And the Rangers just are beatable. I mean, they're a fine team. We're about to talk about them in a second, but could the Angels make some noise here? Maybe.
Probably going to.
They're going to make noise, whether it's good or bad noise.
They're
Noise
gonna-
will be made.
there
There will
will
be
be noise.
decibels coming out of Anaheim for sure.
Yes.
Again,
They need a third baseman. We'll see whatever that entails and how they do that. But I think pitching. I think pitching. You know they're gonna go to try to get their bat, but I think pitching. You cannot be rolling Kyle Hendricks. The duo of Jack Kohanowicz and Kyle Hendricks is just insane. Um,
two completely different guys.
both
Same
just
results,
allergic
though.
to strikeouts.
Yeah, same results.
I think you got to go get an arm, and then you need another bullpen arm, and they'll do that.
Angels should trade for Sandy. Control, build
That
with
actually
this.
is such an Angels move. I
Yeah.
just don't know what they would give up. But they definitely need. I mean, Reed Detmers looks like a legit high leverage arm. That's great. Kenley's okay, but he's just looks old. They need a couple relievers if they want to try to cosplay as contenders. And then I think
We're
a
being
starter
so
as well.
mean. We're being so mean to a team that right now is 42 and 42. They got the rest of the season out in front of them.
Yes.
But I agree with you. I mean, like they've been
Ben
winning
Joyce being out for
games.
season's tough. I
Yeah.
really like a couple of the guys in the minors that they could potentially move into the bullpen if they wanted to, like Sammy
Oh, they
Natera.
will. They will.
Well, Ryan Johnson, you remember he
Yeah.
debuted?
Oh, I
He's
remember.
now a starter in high A. he
Almost
went
double
from,
A.
he went from closer in the big leagues to now getting stretched back out as a starter in high A. They need to add a starter, a couple bullpen arms, and then maybe a bat. But this is the best Angels team we've seen in a little bit, so who knows? I, I think they're definitely going to be buyers, though. I agree.
Do they have the system to add with control? Like we are joking, but that would be good for them.
I mean, teams would have interest in Caden Dana. They did a great job in being able to net a George Klassen at the last deadline, for Carlos Estevez. So like Klassen is not having a good year, but teams' internal stuff models would still love this guy. So I think that's still a guy that they could flip back around the other way. Caden Dana, not great at the big league level, struggling in the PCL, but it's the PCL. I do think Klassen and Dana are still arms that carry some value. Nelson Rada, they fast tracked him like crazy to double A, but he's also still a player that I think carries some value. They'd have to pretty much piece together all of the players that the best like prospects that they have, but they could theoretically, I think, put something competitive enough together
They'd probably
to get a
consider
player.
they'd probably consider Christian Moore untouchable.
I would imagine so because
Yeah.
like that's kind of a piece of
Yeah,
their
of
their
course.
infield at this point.
You're dreaming on a Moore Neto up the middle
I
duo
just
for a
don't
long
know.
time.
I don't know how much they can add though, because like they do have some pieces you could put together for a trade, but it's not a ton.
Yeah.
It's not a ton.
You ready to move on to the Red Sox?
Yes.
We're going to start with a report that I saw this morning from Jim Bowden. He pulled 40 executives writing a piece for The Athletic, and this was his takeaway. Red Sox might trade Alex Bregman if they don't come to a contract extension, which
It'd be nuts
I
after
don't want to
after
say I
trading.
told you so, but
Well, hey, if that happens, I will issue an apology and let you say I told you so for the first 5 minutes of the podcast.
can I get 10?
Maybe,
I'm
maybe
just kidding.
depends how bad the
No,
trade is.
I mean, yeah, that's the report. Who knows? But again, what it does tell me and what I've just been thinking the whole time, I'm like, I don't know why we're putting the Red Sox into buyer category.
No, I don't. I don't think they should be buyers.
I mean, they like technically, like, here's what they need. They could use a left-handed bat. No, I'm just kidding. Well, they could, but I mean,
Could
they
they?
need a.
They have like eight lefties.
I don't know. I'm totally joking. They need a second baseman because David Hamilton just isn't the answer. I think he's got like a 30 WRC plus. No, it's definitely better than that, but
It's
hasn't been.
33.
It's 33. Yeah, so it is better than that. So it is better than that. 33. Jeez. Yeah, I mean, they need a second baseman. They could use a starting pitcher and they could use some bullpen help. And they have about 12 left-handed hitters, you're right, in their lineup. I understand why they wouldn't buy.
I don't know why they would buy. You're gonna have Patrick Sandoval back, so like that's a rotation spot that eventually he'll be grabbing. Like you're gonna trying to trade for a starter to help you now just doesn't really make
Makes
sense.
sense.
I
Giolito
don't
might
see,
get traded. That was another report, too, that he could potentially be on the block.
which I don't totally get either. He's been throwing okay for them, and like he also has a $14 million option for next year. Stan Pat, I don't know what you would. This team, if crazier things have happened, this team could just get hot and go and do it as constructed.
Like,
But I
yes,
don't.
they could get hot, but like like they are not.
It's not worth mortgaging the future to try to stimulate that
No.
heat. So that's what I'm saying. So like, give this team. Don't sell. I don't think you should sell. I think you keep this team together. See what happens. Give them a shot in terms of that. Like that's your buy is that you didn't sell, and go from there. But if you're going to trade prospects to try to like bolster this team, there's a chance that the wheels can continue to fall off. So I think you just kind of stand pat. Like any move that you make, especially if it's with control, like you still have questions to be answered next year. What's Tristan Casas going to look like? You still going to need to find a spot for him. You're going to get Yoshida back, so like, might as well just see what he can do as a platoon with a Romy or Eaton or whatever, and figure it out. But like, I think you let the kids play, see if those guys can continue to get better, which they already look like they are, especially Roman, and go from there. You hope Walker continues to get better. You're seeing Giolito settle in a little bit. Richard Fitz is healthy and back. Like just see how things go from within and go from there. I don't see why you would do anything else.
Here's the
Kyle
thing about a
Harrison too. Like Harrison can get up there and end up helping you.
here's the thing about a Bregman deal. How many teams need third baseman just on this show in the American League? And there is such a lack of third baseman. I mean, someone's going to pay a pretty penny for that.
You definitely should listen, but I look at their situation. I say, okay, well, you traded Devers. Next year, it's going to be what your goal is probably to have Marcelo Meyer at shortstop, right? I mean, Trevor
Yeah,
Story. I don't know what the hell the plan is
he's
there,
just been
but
terrible.
he's just not very good.
He's a good defender,
Um,
but that's about it.
So I don't know why you would do that. But I agree. Like you can listen, see if you get a crazy offer, but I think they should do absolutely nothing.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. Do absolutely nothing. All right, let's move over to the Texas Rangers. Um, they're gonna get Langford back, but I did put in outfielder with power. I mean, Ozuna had a big home run the other day, but overall he just hasn't really been cutting it. But to be fair, he's 22 years old. They pulled him up because Langford got hurt. The Rangers rank 18th in home runs, but Langford's going to come back. But does Sam Haggerty continue what he's been doing so far? And it's been cool, right? He's been a 105 WRC plus guy. He's playing good defense. Like that's a fun and exciting new player to the fold. And maybe he turns into their Josh Smith, where it's like a guy just comes out of nowhere and is just way better than we might have thought. Maybe he does, right? And maybe they don't necessarily need one when Langford comes back. I just did notice that, all right, this team needs some power, not really any spots to add elsewhere besides the outfield. So I wrote that one down as potentially something they could need. But I think the most important part is starting pitching. Because, I mean, Pat Corbin, Leiter and Rocker, they've just been inconsistent. Cody Bradford's gone for the year. Maybe Malley and Gray come back, but not really sure. And then at the top, you got DeGrom and you got Eovaldi, and Eovaldi's coming back from an injury. I just think starting pitching, if they were to add, but at the same time, it's like how many more games when they're under 500, do we still believe, right? It's like they're still under 500 at this point.
And they're still number one in baseball in starting pitching ERA for what it's
Yeah,
worth.
I
So like,
know. And it's been
I'd
good
let it.
so far.
I'd let it ride. If they were contending, I agree. I'd be like, okay, I want a little bit more proven, commodities here. But Rocker's thrown the ball all right the last couple starts.
Yeah,
Leiter's been all right. Corbin doesn't suck
he
this
doesn't.
now, which is
He doesn't
crazy.
suck.
Um, I think the bat, like you go maybe for a cheap bat to add and try to give it a shot because you have DeGrom throwing like Jacob DeGrom again, which is crazy. I wonder if that's just what you do because I don't think they should subtract, right? Like I don't think there's really much to sell here. And when you add Langford back, I think going to get one other, yeah, power bat because you're going to put Langford what back in center field. Corner outfield power bat would be a nice addition.
You probably put Langford in left.
And then you're gonna have Carter back too off the
Yeah.
bereavement list.
And you're going to get Berger back as well to add to some of that power.
I think you just kind of roll with it as
Yeah.
is. Maybe you make a cheap addition, just see what happens. But this is another team that like Degrom's throwing like Degrom every fifth day, and Eovaldi's throwing like Eovaldi every fifth day, and Rocker and Leiter are settling in, and the offense just doesn't suck as much. Like Corey Seager's starting to settle in. Maybe they get hot and they make it work, but
Yeah.
I don't think you give up any future assets for that. Sebastian Walcott's untouchable. Malcolm Moore is potentially your future at the catching position. They have some arms that they could move if they wanted to. But if anything, I'd think about moving Emiliano Teodo to the bullpen and focusing on that now that he's healthy. But he's been banged up a lot of the year and struggling in AAA since then. Their best pitching prospect Alejandro Rosario is out for season, and then it gets really thin after that. So it's not a bad farm system. I think Cole Drake is shoved, so it's another good arm for them. But I would just stand pat.
Yeah.
It's not a good enough farm system where you just could be giving away 10 to 15 ranked prospects, and I don't think the team is proven enough to do that either.
And I'm also a little bit worried about the bullpen down the stretch. I know they've been awesome this year, right? They're ranked fifth in bullpen ERA, but it's a very old bullpen. Like you look at each individual guy. I mean, Chris Martin probably comes to the minds of most when we're talking about old bullpen arms, right? He's 39 years old, but Luke Jackson is 34. Hobie Milner is 34, turning 35. Sean Armstrong, 34, turning 35. Even Jacob Webb, Dane Dunning, both over 30 years old. So will they continue what they have shown this year? Maybe, but also could a bullpen arm be in the fold here? But I agree with you. Like what? Adding a decent bullpen arm. Like I don't know how that helps. You're
Maybe
just
you
kind of
add an arm with
adding,
control because you have
yeah,
the
maybe.
opportunity to, but I'm this is another year where I'm sitting hoping the guys get hot. You're seeing Seager and Semien pick up, go from there, but I'd also be listening on my guys too. If
Me
somebody
too.
gives me an offer for Adolis Garcia, like I might have to take it because he hasn't been that good and he's 32. So, if anything, I'd lean more towards selling than buying, but I wouldn't even want to sell just because you have DeGrom doing what he's doing, Evaldi doing what he's doing, and still have the talent on the roster
Yeah,
that you've got.
absolutely. And last, the last team that we're going to evaluate, the Guardians. Disappointing. Disappointing season so far. And their real needs, right? Because they could use a starter, of course, but it seems like the starting rotation is pretty filled, at least at this point. And they still have this incredible bullpen, but I mean, they need like four bats on 'em. Like four of them. They need guys everywhere that isn't first base with Carlos Santana, third base with Jose Ramirez, DH with Kyle Manzardo, and left field with Stephen Kwan. I could hear about anybody else, really. I mean, Lane Thomas has been terrible.
Horrible.
Bo Naylor just isn't putting it together offensively at the catching position, and it's not like he's this all world defender either, right? Brian Rocchio has been one of the worst players in the sport. Not even
Yeah.
just at the shortstop position. Like if you're
No.
ranking bottom five players in baseball, like Rocchio might make that list. And you look at again everywhere else except those names that I mentioned, there's not a lot of meat on that bone.
No.
So it's like, oh yeah, arm, they need this position, they need this position, this position, and this position, and then we go. That doesn't sound like a buyer to me. And
Nope.
especially when we're talking about a team like the Guardians, who unless they are one piece away, they're not really going to buy. I mean, I brought them up because they fit the mold of this exercise. They are just 3 games out, but They might just sell. That just might be the answer.
It probably is. I mean, there's no way you can look at this. You got to be honest with yourself. There's
Yeah.
no way you can look at this team and say, "Hey, we can put things together here. Like we can make this work." It's going to be really tough for that to happen. I think maybe they get hot and something happens, but I don't think there's anything that you can do really acquisition wise to get them to a point where you feel like this team can truly compete. Shane
Yeah.
Bieber getting back is going to help, but like that's not their problem. They can't hit. Chase DeLauder, they got to call that guy up yesterday, and I think they will call him up very soon because he's really swinging it well in AAA. That's a guy that can jolt you a little bit, but holy crap, their whole lineup's going to be left-handed at that point. I think it's all switch hitters and left-handed hitters except for Lane Thomas, who like is not a hitter at all right now.
Yeah.
Um, I don't really know. I think the clear area is like if you could just find a passable shortstop, like IKF, come on down again. Like this is another IKF conversation. They love the versatility, stuff like that. That can help you this year. And I think next year, right, he's under control for another year after this one. If he's a rental, then screw that. But it's I don't think you do anything if
Yeah.
if you're them because this team what could they possibly do that's going to get them right other than just playing better from within? There's too many gaps right now
Yeah.
with this ball club. I don't think you can justify making any major move.
That's why I think it makes sense if I'm Cleveland to listen on these elite bullpen arms.
I agree. I,
Like,
I would
I'm
consider
not
it.
hanging up the phone if someone's asking for Class A. I'm just not. And I said it a while ago, and I got a lot of raised eyebrows for good reason because it was crazy. But now it doesn't sound so crazy to me.
Mm-mm. I don't think so at all. The contract is so favorable.
Yeah.
He's not sub one ERA Emmanuel Clase. He's still really damn good, but you get a haul for him, and oh my gosh, can you imagine the teams that would be lining up to trade for him? And you could
Lining
go get your
up.
shortstop of the future. You could go get and I know you could say, oh, we have Angel now and stuff like that, but you could go get guys that could help you now, like upper minors prospects as
Yeah.
well. And you could get a massive haul for a guy that throws one inning for you, every day.
And
That
Cade Smith would immediately take over the closer's role and be one of the best in baseball. So it's
yeah,
not like, yeah, of course, losing Class A sucks, but with years of control of that guy who, you know, could go down as one of the better closers of all time, he's on that track. I mean, he would get you a massive haul, get you those bats that you need. And yes, it would suck to say goodbye to him, how good, incredible he has been. But at the same time, like, when you have so many guys and you're also an organization that has proven that you can spawn these players. I'm always a proponent of trading bullpen arms. I don't care how good they are. So
especially when
that's
you
why I
increased
think,
his value by signing him to a deal that like
yeah,
is insane. So
incredible.
yeah, I'm with you. I think if anything, they sell, and especially just knowing the way the Guardians operate, I don't see how you add to this team.
So that'll do it for this episode of the Just Baseball Show. Hopefully, everybody enjoyed. The best way to support for free, rate and review Spotify, Apple Podcasts, 5 stars, and liking, commenting, subscribing on YouTube. Let us know what types of players are you interested after hearing episode part one, basically of a two-part episode where we are evaluating the needs of contenders at the deadline. But I have a last word before we end it. Um, so this question has been asked a ton of times, but I really came up with a good answer for it that nobody else has mentioned, or at least that I haven't seen. What is the biggest animal you think you could take in a fight?
Biggest animal I can take in a fight.
No guns.
No guns. That wouldn't even help me that much. I don't even know if
I
I'd
think it
properly.
would
I wouldn't
help
even know
you.
how to
I
use
think it
it.
would help you.
No, I think it would only hurt me. I might actually use it wrong. Um, biggest animal I
Like
could
lighting up a cigarette from the wrong side. You use like the wrong side, you're shooting behind you. That would,
literally like scared of that. Um, I mean, dude, like human would be the answer, but um,
and that human for you would have to be like 10 years or younger.
yes, correct. It would need to be a small human. Uh how I'm trying to think of like I do think I could. We talked about it, I could beat the shit out of a kangaroo.
No, you couldn't. I couldn't
I
beat the shit out.
whoop
Kangaroos
his
are
ass.
sick. We talked about that. If the kangaroos invade Australia, they're done. Those things are like jacked and they
They are
box.
kind of jacked. Um, okay. Well, if I
I
can't
have
take
an
a
animal
kangaroo,
that's bigger than that that I think I can beat. Do you want to hear my answer?
Yeah.
I think I could take down a camel.
N- Don't they
Think
like
about
kick
it.
and shit?
Do they? I mean, they got those huge humps. Like, what are camels known for? Their ability to contain water in the desert. They don't fight. They don't have any enemies. I don't think. Like, they're not natural born fighters, but they are 7 feet tall. Like, I think I could take one down. I'm not confident in it, but to answer the question, I've never heard anyone say camels. I think I could fight a camel and win. I think.
I
Think about it, they're
like
not agile. Like, grab one of their legs, take them to the ground. Like, they're just. What sound does a camel make?
I actually
Like,
don't
I don't
know.
know what a
I
camel.
They don't
They
make
don't. They
sounds.
don't moo.
They
Cows.
don't
I don't know
move.
what sound they make. I could take one down, and that thing's 7 feet tall and like 500 pounds.
I'm standing by kangaroo. I think I could. I think I could
There's
kick a
no
kangaroo.
kangaroos are littler than camels, and they'd beat. Both of us couldn't take a
I
kangaroo. I
don't
don't
like
think.
your chances against a camel.
You're underrating my agility and speed.
I I think I don't
Isn't
like
that
my
a good
chances
answer
against it.
though? I
That
feel
is a
like
good
that's a
answer.
good answer.
That is a good answer. Like just bare hands. I'm not taking a horse or anything. That thing will
No.
kick my face in.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
a camel is
camel's
like a
probably the best answer.
it's like a
Camel's probably
way worse horse.
it is like a shittier horse.
Way worse.
But
Maybe
I
I
like
could
the
just
idea the
we could
kangaroo like
just be
squares up. It
are we
squares
just
up, so you can just kind of.
are we just underrating camels? I don't think I am. Like we're gonna get someone in the YouTube comments being like, "You're the biggest idiot in the world. Camels can do this. Camels can do that. I've seen them fight 5 humans and survive." And then I'm gonna look like a total moron, which is why I love the YouTube comments looking back after these episodes. But I do feel like I could take down a camel.
I think those things can get nasty.
There's no way. That's just your thought. Like, have you ever seen a camel get nasty? What does that even entail? Using their
There have been
humps?
instances of humans killed by camels, and other instances such as the camel attack at the petting zoo and a camel attack in Texas. There was a camel attack at a petting zoo. That's tragic.
That's traumatizing to the max. I
Don't
still think
see
push comes to shove.
two killed by camel at what petting zoo? Holy shit! One of them was 42.
Oh no.
I'm sticking with my kangaroo. I think you're
You're
getting
crazy.
you're getting
I think
stomped.
kangaroo is way
That shit.
crazier than a camel. Way
That camel.
crazier.
No, that camel is kicking your ass. And
Kangaroos literally fight. Camels just walk around and are huge.
what do you
And
mean they
like
kill?
in
These
that
guys are
one story, look up stories about kangaroos
double
killing
kill.
people. Actually, what are we doing? Look up stories about people dying, Arm. Come on, we got to do it for the pod.
Let us know in the YouTube comments. I actually want to know what someone's gonna give a really good
Really
answer,
good answer.
like a really big sloth.
Mucking.
But they have like sharp
Like a
nails.
huge koala? How
I don't
big do
know. Those things are
koalas get?
scary. No, those things are scary.
Really?
Yeah,
I
I think
feel
those
like they're
are
kind of. I've learned that they're very dumb.
Are
The
they?
koalas are like the dumbest. Or maybe that's sloths. It's one of them. They're like the dumbest animal. Besides the sunfish. Remember when I
Koalas
brought
are
up the
pretty dumb.
sunfish who dive sometimes from just floating up to the top and getting heat strokes?
That's good.
I
That's
love the
good.
sunfish. No, but I'm sticking with my answer, the camel. So let us know in the YouTube comments below. Could you take on a camel? Or do you think I'm crazy for it? For Arm Layton, I'm Peter Apple. We will see you tomorrow for the National League. And with that, thank you, everybody.